In a biting segment that has once again captured the internet's attention, SouthPark returned to its unapologetic roots by brutally mocking Meghan Markle over her alleged behind-the-scenes plea to Netflix for a second season of With Love. The animated satirical powerhouse didn't hold back, portraying Meghan as a tone-deaf, ego-driven figure desperately clinging to relevance, despite overwhelming signs that the public and Hollywood has moved on. Far from lighthearted parody, this was a searing indictment of a woman who has turned self-promotion into an art form, even as her brand slowly erodes under the weight of public fatigue and industry rejection. The SouthPark roast, which aired amid reports that Meghan had privately lobbied Netflix execs for another shot at producing With Love, paints a scathing picture. In the episode, the character obviously modeled after Meghan is seen pitching empathy while holding a wine glass labeled VIP Tears, a not-so-subtle jab at her failed as Ever Rose launch. Viewers were quick to draw parallels to Meghan's real-life ventures, many of which have faltered despite big-budget backing and PR muscle. From the failed Spotify deal to the dwindling momentum of her Netflix brand, the show pulled no punches, mocking the wide chasm between her self-styled image and her actual public reception. What makes this roast so powerful and damning is that SouthPark wasn't riffing on rumors or tabloid speculation. They were, in classic form, mirroring real-world developments. Netflix has not confirmed a second season of With Love, and internal sources reported by credible entertainment outlets suggest executives are disappointed by the lackluster performance of Meghan's previous content. The first season was critically panned, labeled by reviewers as hollow, overpolished, and void of authenticity. Despite its glossy production, With Love failed to connect with viewers or critics, ranking poorly in Netflix's internal engagement metrics. For a platform known to axe shows after even moderate underperformance, Meghan's push for renewal is less a creative pitch and more a last-ditch effort to keep her media ambitions afloat. What stings even more for Meghan is the fact that the public seems increasingly allergic to her carefully curated narratives. SouthPark's satire struck a nerve not just because it was funny, but because it was true. A woman once hailed as a modern feminist icon now finds herself regularly lampooned as disingenuous, opportunistic, and, worse, boring. Where once her voice was championed, now it's met with eye rolls and late-night ridicule. And SouthPark, with its finger on the pulse of cultural fatigue, tapped perfectly into that sentiment. This public sentiment isn't just anecdotal, it's backed by metrics. Meghan's Archetypes podcast was canceled after just one season, with Spotify parting ways in what they diplomatically called a mutual agreement, though executives later criticized the Sussexes for not delivering value. Her Netflix projects, including the animated series Pearl, were scrapped before ever hitting the screen. Even her recent wine brand faced fierce backlash, both for its pricing and what critics called a hollow marketing strategy masking mediocrity. If Meghan's brand was once built on being the anti-royal, the empowered outsider, it's now become synonymous with style over substance, and SouthPark made sure the world laughed at that transformation. Even worse for Meghan, Hollywood has a notoriously short memory and even shorter patience. In a post-strike streaming landscape where budgets are tighter and executives are more cautious, sentimentality doesn't sell. Meghan's plea for a second season isn't being met with enthusiasm, but with polite silence. Netflix has made no official announcements about With Love's renewal, and inside reports indicate the show failed to meet even modest audience retention goals. This isn't about cancel culture, it's about performance or lack thereof. You can't sell empowerment when the audience doesn't believe you're living it. SouthPark didn't create Meghan's problems, they simply reflected them, exaggerated for comedic effect but grounded in an undeniable truth. The Markle media experiment is floundering. Desperate to rebrand and reinvent, Meghan continues to misread the room. She pleads for second chances when the audience hasn't finished groaning from the first. She positions herself as a content creator, but the content lacks edge, lacks truth, and above all, lacks demand. Ultimately, the SouthPark segment is more than just a viral TV moment, it's a cultural milestone. It's a loud, cartoonish, brutally honest warning bell. If Meghan Markle wants to rebuild, she'll need more than slick production and Instagram-ready soundbites. She'll need authenticity, humility, and results. And right now, she's 0 for 3. In Hollywood, Perception is everything, but even that has its limits. And when even SouthPark says your act is tired, maybe it's time to rewrite the script entirely. Because when parody becomes prophecy, there's little room left to hide. SouthPark didn't just mock Meghan, they diagnosed her problem. The show's writers, notorious for cutting through Hollywood's PR polish, laid bare what executives and viewers alike have been whispering for months. Meghan's brand is no longer fresh, compelling, or trustworthy. Her every move seems engineered, not inspired. And when audiences begin to see the seams in your performance, no amount of curated documentaries or pastel-colored wine bottles can stitch it back together. Behind the scenes, industry insiders reportedly view her as a high-maintenance talent whose output doesn't match the investment. The charm that once captivated the world during her fairy tale wedding has now been replaced by a weariness, a public exhaustion with the constant reinventions and victim-centered narratives. Even Netflix, once her greatest champion, appears hesitant to gamble again on content that doesn't deliver. So what happens next? Another pivot? A podcast relaunch? A third memoir? Meghan may still have resources and influence, but SouthPark's roast marks a cultural turning point. When satire becomes the loudest and most accurate voice in the room, the problem isn't the punchline. It's the person being laughed at.